And Councillor Arnott and I were able to do that recently in the last hour, and I think everyone survived.
Yeah, nobody yelled at us.
We didn't spill anything.
Openly, anyway.
So at the beginning of the meeting, I just will use the podium here for a second to just make reference to an award that the town received. And this is for the 2016 Commercial Building Awards. And I'd just like to welcome Harvey Goodman and Micah Penn to come forward here. Harvey Goodman, of course, is with RDH Building Science, and he was our project manager for this. And Micah Penn's here to represent Alan Fletcher's construction company, BFC Construction, which acted as the general contractor. So with their help, of course, and the staff's work on this, we did receive an award of merit, which is like a runner-up award for under the institutional category for the Comox Public Works Complex. And we attended that awards a couple of Thursdays ago, and Harvey and I were pleased to receive that. So maybe we can just show council the award, and Micah, you can come over here. And anyone got a camera? Just film. Just film.
Hang on, we got one.
Yeah, we'll get our administrator to take a picture. So I can tell you that from that night, there were a lot of great categories and awards, and we were in stiff competition with the Qualicum Beach Fire Hall. Wow. Make it out of my finger in that one. And I know that as we go along with other projects, we'll be looking forward to hopefully submitting other nominations. And thank you again for all your work. Well done. Cheers. Well done. That's right. I'll sit up. So we'll make sure that we can get some pictures of that off to your respective companies, and thank you again for your contributions. So without further ado, we do have the motion to adopt the agenda.
Move. Second.
On adoption. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And for our delegation this evening, we have Corey Vanderhorst here to talk to us from Myers Norris Penny about the Town of Comox audit findings report. So welcome.
I suppose I shouldn't complain that they're leaving because I attended that bill right after. It's just financials, right? Thank you for having me here today, everyone. Another year comes and goes pretty quick, and here we are to talk about the financials and the audit. There's a slide coming up to talk about it, but I'll start by thanking Don, Richard, and the rest of the staff for all their assistance with the audits here. As always, it goes nice and smooth, and we don't have any complaints or issues. So I'll take you through a highlight of the financial statements, a few little spots. I'm happy to answer questions, either as we're going or you can save them up for the end. I'll talk a little bit about the audit process, and then I'd like to end off with a little bit of analysis of the statements. I mean, it's a little less focusing on some of those numbers from the past and looking at trends and ratios and where things might be moving with the town. And I'll start by getting my technology to work.
This is tricky.
Yeah. Point it at the screen or point it at the...
It's actually radio frequency, so there you go.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a bit of a lag.
Alright. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to start with the statement of financial position, what we used to call the balance sheet, this snapshot of what's in the accounts at December 31st, 2015. You can see there the town had cash and investments of $21.4 million. Long-term debt is down to $1.4 million. The total liabilities at the town are $12.3 million. And if we take those total liabilities, subtract them off the total financial assets, we get what we call a net financial asset position, $10.2 million. So that's kind of like a liquid position. If everything wrapped up today and you had to collect and pay out everything, that's where you'd be. The physical assets, the tangible capital assets at the town, buildings, road, water, sewer, all the stuff that you're doing large projects on, are sitting on the books right now at $84 just under $84.3 million. So that is a historic cost depreciated over time. That is not a replacement cost of those assets. Replacement cost would be a large multiple of that number. And then at the end of the year, the accumulated surplus number for the town is $94.8 million, and I'll get into what's in that number in a future slide. Moving then to the income statement, or the statement of operations. So for 2015, the town had revenues of $19.8 million, total expenses of $17.8. So on an accounting basis, there's an annual surplus just shy of $2 million. So that's got lots of non-cash adjustments and accounting entries in it. In a couple slides, I'll show you what happened with the cash flows in and out of the bank accounts and the investment accounts. But first, I'll look at the revenues and look at them in a little bit more detail there. So this breaks out where the revenues are coming from. You see the big blue line on the left is taxes. That's the largest revenue source, followed by sale of services. And then from there, it drops off quite a bit. You see the government transfers would be the third most, that purple line, and that one tends to fluctuate pretty significantly year over year, depending on capital projects and other types of funding. On the expense side of things, the two that are the biggest there, sewer and water expenses, and parks and recreation and cultural, are the two biggest, and they're consistently the biggest. The third one would be transportation, which would include road repair and maintenance, which can be a significant expense annually. The third statement in the financials is called the Statement of Change in Net Debt, and what I'll highlight there is that town purchased just about $2.6 million of physical assets during the year. There was another $61,000 that was donated. So the net change in the net financial asset position was positive, $2.69 million. I promised I would talk about cash flow. So here you can see operations of the town brought in $4.6 million. Capital, it spent $2.599. A little bit of capital disposed of, so land disposals, $642,000 of proceeds on those land sales. Investing provided $1.2 million, so that's moving money out of GICs and into bank accounts. And financing $379,000, that's to pay down the debt on schedule. So the net cash inflow for the town was $3.5 million for 2015. This next slide talks about what's in that $94.8 million of accumulated surplus. So the top line is what we call the invested in capital assets. That's the value that was in the physical assets minus the $1.4 million of debt. Then we have $6.2 million set aside in reserves for future projects, capital or otherwise. $8,750 in the capital fund sitting there. That's the book value of shares in the golf club, which just sits on the books at that amount. It's been there for a long time. Won't be changing. And the operating fund has a $5.7 million amount in it. So that's all the statement comments. Move into some audit talk. We have an unqualified opinion, which means, once again, a clean audit opinion for the town. We're satisfied that the statements are clearly correct. We're ready to sign the audit report. Our audit is all complete. Of course, we have the wrap-up items of council approval today. And wrapping up really the legal letters and getting those confirmations. We always discuss with the lawyers right up to today's date of whether there's any new claims or lawsuits that popped up there that might have an impact on the financial statements. So that's the last step that we're doing, getting council approval and talking to lawyers. Our audit responsibilities. We look at the controls in place at the town to make sure that we think that the financial statements will be able to be produced accurately. We sample transactions throughout the year to form our audit opinion, but we don't look at every transaction. That's just not feasible from a cost-benefit perspective. The second line there on this slide, materiality, using the audit was $350,000. That number is a percentage of your total revenue. That's how we come up with that number. And what that means is we've looked at every transaction balance over $350,000 that's on the statements, and underneath that level, we sampled items. That's also the level that we use if we find anything that we need to discuss with Don and his team. Adjustments or anything, that's our threshold for needing something changed. So there was no limitations placed on the performance of our audit. We had access to all the paperwork and people that we wanted to talk to. We didn't find any irregularities that would impact the statements, no evidence of conflict of interest, illegal or questionable payments. We aren't specifically fraud investigators or forensic investigators, but we always have to keep that in mind as we're going through our audit process. If something comes up that looks unusual, we follow up and make sure there's no issues. And we have discussions both with staff and with a member of council to make sure that there's nothing popped up during the year. We talked to a lot of people during the audit, primarily Don and his finance staff and Richard, and we listed them all out there. I'd like to again thank them for all their assistance. Some areas that we spend extra time in on the audit, we always look at the financial statement presentation and disclosure, what's in the notes and all those things. As the accounting standards and the rules evolve over time, there's always little tweaks to be made there. I already mentioned contingencies, lawsuits, equipments. We're checking in with the lawyers, make sure there's nothing out there that you're not already aware of. Fraud and error that we have to keep an eye on. And the new one this year was liabilities for contaminated sites. So this was a new accounting rule that came in at the beginning of 2015. We had to go through and look at, does the town have inactive sites where there might be some contamination? And based on staff's work and our review of that work, there are no issues and no additional liabilities that got recorded in the financial statements this year. So I always have to confirm my independence. And that's what this one does. As of today's date, May the 4th, MMP is independent with respect to the town of Comox. We didn't do any other projects or any other work that would impair our objectivity, and I'm able to do an independent audit report. The last section that I'll talk about is some financial analysis. I'll start with sustainability, which is looking at the degree to which the town can maintain its existing liabilities with respect to both service commitments and the actual physical liabilities and invoices and things that are there without changing or increasing the debt or tax burden. And we like to basically focus on comparing assets to liabilities here. So we start with all the assets, compare them to the liabilities, and we're looking for a ratio that's greater than 1, more assets than liabilities. So at the town, it's increased. It was 8.21 in 2014. It's up to 8.71. So a healthy indicator, the town has more assets than debt. But that number includes a lot of those physical assets that you wouldn't necessarily be able to turn around and sell. So the next thing you want to do is zero in on the financial assets. What do you have in actual cash and receivables and things that can be used to pay off liabilities? So again, we look at financial assets, liabilities, and we want that ratio to be over 1, which means you have money and funds put aside to pay for future projects as opposed to taxing in the future to pay for the past. This ratio has been steadily increasing over the past 5 years. It is greater than 1, so it does mean at this point, at the end of 2015, more financial assets than liabilities. And then the next one in sustainability is looking at the net financial asset position, that liquid position, and comparing it to your total annual revenue. So that ratio has been steadily increasing for the last 5 years. Basically means you're not adding debt load significantly, so this ratio keeps climbing. So we conclude financial sustainability of the town is healthy and has been trending in a positive direction. The next area I'll look at is flexibility. The degree that you might be able to shift debt or tax burden on the residents to meet your existing obligations. We start by looking at what you have in your long-term debt and your liabilities and the interest charges on those liabilities, and compare that to your annual revenue to see how much is going to the interest cost. So in the prior year, 0.88% of your total revenue was going towards debt, and in the prior year 0.94, and in the current year 0.88. So that's reflecting the payment of debt down on schedule, and your interest costs are dropping. The next area we look at is the tangible capital assets, or the physical assets. I like to get a rough idea of the age of the assets by looking at what was the original cost and what is the carrying value on the books right now. So the depreciated value is around 70%. It's been really steady the last few years. 71, 72, 70 for about the last 3. So what that reflects is future cost of capital remaining steady. You're staying on top of things. There was 2.6 million of capital projects done during the year, but those costs are still sticking with you, and you're not actually, that ratio is not climbing. It's kind of went up one year, down the other year. But on the other hand, it's not dropping significantly, which would mean in that case, if the ratio is declining significantly, you wouldn't be putting enough money back into the capital and into the maintenance and into the replacement. So it's been static and show little change for the last few years. Then the last area that I'll look at is vulnerability. So how vulnerable is the town to other sources of funding, namely federal or provincial government funding? So that ratio of government transfers to total revenue decreased from 16.3 in 2014 to 5.5. However, we did an accounting adjustment last year to bring in some of the gas tax and the community works fund. So that is what spiked that ratio in 2014. If you take that out, it's fairly consistent at a low ratio. The town has not been highly vulnerable to fiscal decisions of other levels of government, but I will always throw the caveat on there that even with low reliance on other funding, this ratio can swing dramatically, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you have large capital projects and you've got you've got infrastructure funding coming in for it, that's a good thing. It's a good way to pay for it, because that's a way to keep your debt and your taxes down. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and I am happy to answer anything on the statement. I may defer to staff if it is out of detail, or on the audit process. I'd be happy to answer those as well.
All right, thank you. Members of council, any questions for yes, Councillor Swift?
I just have comments, Corey. It's always kind of reassuring to have you come and do such a presentation to us. I see that you're recommending that the town hire an actuary to calculate the post-employment benefits. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely.
And has one ever been done? How often would it get done?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll start and then I'll let Don speak to it as well, because I know we'll have staff's perspective. I was wondering if someone was official on that, so there's the you guys. Yeah, the calculation of that liability is very complex. What you're looking at is the likelihood of your staff using up their sick banks or not, and how much they'll have by the time they retire or potentially pass away. So the level of detail that goes into that is, there's a reason that actuaries get in there, is because they're looking at the probabilities of all these things. And it's quite complex. Our experience in the last few years has been, we have communities that use actuaries and communities that don't. And our experience has been, there's always a little bit of an adjustment up or down from the ones that start using an actuary. So that tells me that these estimates are rough. There's the potential for that liability to be a little bit overstated or understated. I don't think it's so misstated right now that it's a problem, but I think there's probably a little bit of wiggle room in that number. The skill set to completely do it the way an actuary would is not something that our firm has, and it is a challenging thing. Now, my understanding, and Don can correct me on this, is there was an actuary at some point who did some, okay, it was taken, but Don is basing his calculations on actuarial methods. So he's taking his process and using that same method. So he's getting as close as he can, and the decision then becomes a cost benefit of whether you're going to pay an actuary to do that number, or whether staff can come up with a reasonable, spend the time to make a reasonable number. There's the way an actuary works is they'll do a main project for 1 year, come up with a number, and then refresh it for a few years, and then do another main one. So there tends to be a high price 1 year, and then a couple little update years, and then another high price year. So that cost benefit is something that I believe that, I mean, I've had conversations with Don about whether it's worthwhile or not. My auditor low risk perspective, or very risk averse perspective, is that I like the comfort given by an actuary and the precision of their estimates. However, that being said, I'm I'm giving you a clean audit opinion because I am comfortable with the calculations that Don prepared. That was a long-winded answer.
It's a complex question. Would you have any ballpark figure for what an actuary report might cost?
I don't off the top of my head. I can tell you that the update years don't get higher than $10,000 a year, but I don't know off the top of my head what the first big project is. Yeah, there's several actuary firms out there, Mercer and Warner Chappell, a few others that, so that there's competition in the marketplace. And if the decision was to go to an actuary, I would encourage a full RFP bid process on that to make sure you're getting the best value for money.
Thank you.
All right. Director of Finance, you want to comment on that?
Well, as council knows, I'm the CFO, which in my case stands for cheap finance. There is a significant cost, and for us, each $70,000 expenditure or a portion thereof is a 1% tax increase. So even a $10,000 expenditure per annum starts to add up. The accruals in question, our total accruals for vacation and post-employment are $867,000 at the end of 2015. So to hit MMP's materiality limit for making a change in the financial statement, which is $350,000, I basically have to be off by close to 100%, because most of the accrual is vacation. Most of that 867 is vacation. So I'd have to be really off before it would result in a material difference in the financial statements.
Any other questions, Councillor Price?
Yeah, it's been great, and it sounds very healthy, and having a 1.4 long-term debt is probably quite healthy for an organisation of this size. And would you speculate? I mean, how do we compare with other municipalities in our financial sustainability?
Yeah, in some of those ratios, I can talk. The debt level compared to some other communities is definitely lower. I think that's. I don't need to really pull out the benchmarking stuff for that. The percentage of interest there on less than 1% is low for sure. The challenge is always what projects come down the line and what's the funding mix going to look like, whether that's reserves or tax increases or debt, or whether you can get the government funding coming in. The other one I would comment on was actually the ratio of the assets to 70%. That's still in the mid-range sort of what I'm seeing, but it's the higher end. I'm seeing some people in about the 50, 55, 60 range, and they've got a lot of old assets, and they have a lot of work to do on roads and sewers and water, mostly. But that 70% is one of the healthier ratios of the communities that I'm seeing this year.
Councillor Grant.
Just had one quick question for Don. I noticed we had, 1.4 something million in debt. When's that going to be paid down?
That's composed mostly of general debt, which will be gone in 2 more years. Some of that is debt that's related to specific local services, and it will carry on. I think it disappears by 2022 or 2023 for some of the services.
But a big chunk of it will be gone.
The vast majority of it, the portion of it that comes out of general property taxes, will be gone by the end of 2018. And you'll see that reflected in the debt payments on the financial plan bylaw, which we'll get to a little later in this meeting. If you turn to the first schedule, you can track the debt payments going down behind it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your presentation. Thank you, staff, for bringing that forward to us. All right, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is minutes of the council meeting of April 20th for approval.
Move.
Sorry. On approval, all those in favor? Moving on to manager's report for receipts.
Move receipt.
See that, all those in favor? Carried. Just thing on the organic waste, I had a chat with Mayor Adams, Calgary, on the way back from the Mayor's Caucus, and my understanding is that solid waste management, that there's proposals now for them going forward with that funding application, but I take it that's still in the works.
No, it was due April 26th, it's the end of April.
So is the hope that this pilot project would be further extended as required?
Well, I guess, I think that would be my assumption. That it would have to be extended to fill that gap between when that facility is ready to go. Now, there haven't been any serious discussions regarding that at that point. It would be actually nice to know that. But you notice in the minutes from solid waste, the people from Comox didn't support the motion. But in any event, it's gone ahead, and we'll see what happens, and then I guess we'll find it forward. But I believe the organics have to be separated by 2022. Is the end date. So we're going to have to come up with something.
Right. Okay, thanks. Any updates, CEO, on the Marina Boardwalk?
The discussions between the architect and the contractor are ongoing, and we have, from a staff perspective, forwarded on our detailed drawings of our existing washroom building to see what we can do in terms of adding on to that and keeping that in place. So there's a whole bunch of balls in the air right now, and we expect more by early next week.
All right. Anything else on the manager report? Okay, so then we'll move on to minutes of the regional district.
Move receipt of all those?
Yeah, board, solid waste, hospital board. Okay, all those for receipt?
Second.
And receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. I assume that councillors, directors will report during the report to council coming up later in the meeting on anything coming out of those. All right, moving on to bylaws. We have for adoption the Comox Development Cost Charges Bylaw 1830.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. So that is good news. CEO, I assume we'll do some sort of press release related to the financial plan, but can we include some comments on the CC bylaws?
Yes, we will be releasing this on social media and elsewhere, advising the development community and the community at large of the new rates that come into effect. And I'd like to thank both Marvin, our planner, and Shelley Ashfield for their efforts in giving a quick turnaround on this.
Right, and just a quick reminder of what that does, numbers terms.
Single-family development cost charges are reduced by approximately 40%. Similar numbers for multifamily, and there is also a drop, particularly in the downtown commercial area and our Revite area, for the mixed use of there's a slight drop in commercial, I think, of 10%. So generally good news all around.
And I had several people asking me about when this was going to come up and when it would be adopted. So it sounds like it's good news throughout the building and the development community. They're pretty happy that we're kind of going on this track and doing this kind of stuff. So,
All right, good. We see a lineup at the building permit office.
yeah, be ready. Creating a monster.
Councilor
So
McKenna.
the press release, Your Worship, will be coming out.
The next couple of days, of course, our erstwhile reporters here, I'm sure, cover it thoroughly.
See them writing diligently over there.
All right, so then moving on to the financial plan bylaw, that's for adoption.
Move adoption.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. And third bylaw here is for the tax rates bylaw for adoption.
Move adoption.
Discussion, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Now, not a tax reduction like PCCs, but a modest tax increase. And again, our highlights of that will be outlined in a press release. But generally speaking, 2.7% for residential, 1.7% for commercial for 2016. So that good news will be shared as well.
doing a lot of road work, according to Cory.
Yes, yes, lots of road work, well, 3 big projects, as you know. The new business items, then we have, as a result of the audit and the presentation by staff of the draft 2015 financial statements, so looking for receipt and approval of that.
And with that,
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. And I did want to highlight a statement made by our financial director that I feel we need to recognize in more ways than just going around the table. And that is, Comox is fortunate to have a positive net financial position. The discussions that I've had with other conventions and locally, we are very fortunate indeed, and we felt that was worth being accentuated.
Well, thank you for that. All right, so yeah, 3 big projects, as I mentioned, are the Lazo Road one, which of course is going out to tender. The date for that is the
13th of May.
The Rob Road Phase 1, which the contracts have been signed for now. That work will ensue once school is out, hopefully for completion by the end of August. And then, of course, as referenced earlier, the Marina Boardwalk project, which we're working away at. So there's others, of course, but those are significant.
Your worship,
Yes, sir.
those projects will be promoted and on display on our Public Works
Yes.
open house in May.
May 10th.
That's it. So that's coming up, just to make a plug for that now.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be, what time again is the start for that and location?
It's going to be next door at the Stair Senior Center from 3 p.m. to 7. And that'll be Tuesday, next week.
And I know there's been social media on that. Is there also a newspaper?
Yes, it's been advertised in the local papers and on our social media.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to adopt, receipt and approval of the financial statements. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Next item under new business is the planning report for the extension of the Comox Downtown Revitalization Program and related bylaws for planning procedures and tax exemptions. And staff are looking for a number of recommendations to be passed here. First of all, that the revitalization tax exemption bylaw be given first reading.
and with that,
Second.
And any discussion? Essentially, what we're looking at is extending that program for another year, as outlined in the report. Anything else you wish to add, Mr. Planner?
No.
Okay. Any further comments from anyone? Councillor Price?
I just had a quick question. It mentions in your report that the lawn development has to commence before July the 15th. Have we any indication that it's going to, and if they don't, can they then reapply? Would that be the course of action?
We have had some conversations with the architects. There's a new set of architects currently working on the building permit drawings, and the indication from them is that they are aware of the deadline and they're trying to meet the deadline.
Thank you for that.
I think it's worth noting on that too, that the reason that we put that in was because this is about getting vitalization happening sooner rather than later. And if you don't have a deadline, then that was to stop people from fiddling around and running them out forever, but to give them a date to work. So that seems to be working somewhat in this case.
So in this situation, if they didn't make that deadline, they would not be entitled to reapply, or that opportunity would be gone. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, Councillor McKinnon?
And the Berwick development as well is taking advantage of that, I understand?
Yes, they are working on their outstanding items. The list is getting shorter, and with any luck, that should come back to council for consideration of adoption next council.
2 weeks' time.
Not that I'm putting any pressure on the planning.
All right, Councillor Arnott?
I do have a question with the Larn has there been any discussion? Is there any movement going with that? I mean, they're going to possibly miss out on something.
I think the planner just indicated that they've had some discussions with the architects around submitting a building permit.
Okay.
So, with that one, Sue?
Yep.
All right, all those in favor of the first reading then? Motion's carried. And that having given that first reading and received the report in accordance with section 226(6)B of the community charter, council has considered the bylaw in conjunction with the objectives and policies set out in section 165 3.1C of the community charter. That needs to be moved.
So I would move that.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried.
Second and third readings.
Second and third reading, thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. And for the planning procedures bylaw amendment, we can give it first, second, and third.
Second and third.
Second. All those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, thank you, staff, for bringing that forward in a timely fashion. Adoptions can ensue next meeting. All right, under new business, the third item then is the permanent disability rehabilitation pass and the staff report and recommendations.
So do you want to move first, second, and third reading of that? Is that
We have to, first of all, establish the discounted
okay?
pass and then consider those.
So I'll move recommendation one then.
Okay, so
I'll second it.
any questions? Staff, I don't think the rec director's here, but staff normally can handle any questions. Was this something that we hadn't had before, or I take it that's why we're doing it?
Yes, we hadn't had it before, and it kind of developed out of this recent program that the Recreation Department has worked in partnership with St. Joe's in this rehabilitation program, and it has proven quite successful and quite popular. And so it's resulted in the need for developing this fee law.
And this is separate from the current low-income pass?
Yes.
And I would note too that we also have some specific equipment that certain people with disabilities are coming in and using on a pretty regular basis in there. So we've got a bit of a niche there. So.
Yes, we bought one, I believe it was last year, and we just acquired another one, replacing one of the machines that fits this program quite well.
I was just thinking, wanting to say, I think it's a win-win situation. We're increasing the use of our facility and opening it up for other people to see and enjoy it. And we're also providing a service to the Comox Valley, and I think a service that isn't there. And it's a service that's already there for Comox residents because they can get the low-income access. And as the report pointed out, a lot of people who wish to be in this program have disabilities and therefore have low income. So, we take a lot of rap in the press for various things. So, I think, and nothing of this highlighted, but we actually do a lot of good things, and I think this is a very
Did you get that, Spencer?
right
No, thank you for pointing that out. And yes, of course, we do have the current program of the Recreation Inclusion Program, which does provide support for residents who are economically, of the town who are economically disadvantaged. Good for staff bringing that forward and covering off that bit of a gap in the program. All right, on that recommendation, all those in favor? Motion's carried.
I'll move first, second, and third readings.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. So again, that'll be brought forward as soon for adoption in a couple weeks' time.
On recreation.
All right, so that brings us then to correspondence. We have a letter from Jared Rangel.
I would move receipt of that.
Second.
On receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. I just wanted to make note that this is an issue, the auxiliary program, that is certainly being discussed at the EBCM contract management committee meetings that I've been attending either in person or by teleconference. There's another meeting coming up in 2 weeks' time by teleconference that relates to some of the discussions that go on between the province and the feds, and this is very much a live issue as indicated by the author of this letter. I know Jared has been an auxiliary constable for some time, and he's expressed, I think, in very concise and yet thorough form what the concerns are. And when I was at the mayor's caucus meeting earlier this week, this was very much a concern of all municipalities, and I'm sure at UBCM there will be some discussion of it as well. So we can perhaps reference those things back to Jared and thank him for his letter. I was thinking as well that subject to whatever might be coming forward with UBCM, whether or not there was, and I don't even know if ADICC, I think there might have been a resolution on this issue at ADICC, whether there's something coming forward to UBCM already from another community. Otherwise, if there wasn't, then we could perhaps craft a resolution before the deadline of June 30th. So maybe we get staff to check on that.
Yeah, that would be it.
Well, I'm glad to hear we're doing that, because when I read this letter, it was one of those ones where I didn't really quite know what to do with it, because I really understand where he's coming from, and I get that situation, and yet Port of the Town of Comox doesn't have a whole lot of sway when it comes to these kinds of things. So I'm really glad to hear that FCM is going to, and UBCM are going to take this on and see what they can do, and if the resolution's needed, I think we should do it.
Yeah, and of course it may come up at FCM as well, but so we'll get staff to check with UBCM, see what they've got coming forward. The fellow that I deal with at the contract management team, Jared Wright, so he might have some information.
So no resolutions coming in, we may review.
We may look at that in a couple weeks' time to see if there's something going forward. I do believe that there is something going on, but I can't remember exactly. All right, so I think we're going to receive that, and we'll see what comes of that. Review, and then second item of correspondence is the now 8th annual Highland Grad Cruise.
So I've moved receipt and we grant them their cruise.
Second that?
Yeah, thank you. And all those in favor? Motion's carried.
And sunshine.
Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit older now, because I remember my middle son was first year of it, and now it's 8 years already, so that must make him almost 25. So that's
It's a
great.
great event.
Makes you old.
Well, yeah. All right, so there's that, and the last item is the big bike event's coming here on June 13th. So they're looking for granting permission on the usual terms.
So move receipt and that we grant them the request on the normal terms.
Seconded. All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Can we add an amendment that Councillor Grant ride on the big bike?
Both councillors.
Which one? Yeah.
I'm ready to do it.
There's room for everyone on that
Yeah,
bike.
we could
I think they take 20 people on it.
We could all go. We're not, you have to weigh that easy.
Yeah.
Just don't let Councillor McKinnon drive.
Yeah.
Welcome to that.
Might be on the wrong side anyway.
All right, so that brings us to reports from members of council. So we'll start with Councillor Swift.
Okay, I attended the water forum hosted by the Health Authority, and unfortunately there was more material than time. I don't know whether they're going to reschedule a follow-up meeting, but I am going to attend the forum that is being put on this Saturday by the Residents Association in the regional district. I attended the regular Philbert meeting, and I'm pleased to see that the tea house has been renamed the Philbert Summer Kitchen, and it will be operated by Custom Gourmet and Don McCurry. So we look forward to some good eats there. Please check the website for operating hours, though. She's not going to be open every day. I believe it's going to be Thursday to Sunday. The Philbert board is also very pleased with the path paving that was done by the town, which goes from the entrance to the chicken coop, which will make the park easier for everyone, but especially those people that have mobility challenges. And also the replacement of the water lines into the caretaker's cottage and lodge, and the washrooms is slated to begin in mid-May, and that will once again restore the quality drinking water to those buildings. So they're really pleased with all the activity there and the support from the town. I attended the second to the last, I think, Mac Lang meeting, and we're going to meet one final time to review the conclusions, and then a report will be coming to won't say anything more at this point, pending the report. I went to the barbecue hosted by the fire department to increase awareness for Honor House. And that is a facility that helps with the rehabilitation of any first responder that is suffering from PTSD. And I mention it here as the purpose of the tour was to raise awareness, and even our firefighters were aware of this facility. The house itself is in New Westminster and so on. So if you do know of anybody, spread the word. And lastly, I attended the Battle of the Atlantic in place of our mayor. The ceremony took place on Sunday, and it was a great day and a wonderful ceremony.
Thank you, Councillor Knight.
Yes, thank you. I'll keep it brief. I did have an audit committee meeting yesterday, and there was some concern regarding the proposed construction and how that would impact them, but I said that I'm sure everything will flow nicely for them, so they'll talk with the town on further with that. I did attend the VHA Water Forum, the Honor House as well, and McDonald's McHappy Day, and that went quite well. There's a lot of people showed up, and you know, one of the things I could hear when somebody would come through the till, and yes, I did help out at the drive-through window, and and a lot of people were willing to donate $1 and to help out kids.
Good. Excellent. Councillor Knight.
Well, we had no RD meetings last week, so that was a nice break, but I think we might have mentioned this last time, but Councillor McKinnon and I toured the Campbell River Water Park, which was an interesting little tour. I also went to the Water Forum. I went to the Lazo Foreshore Rehabilitation ribbon cutting, and I also met with I don't know if they're the new owners of the mall today or they will be tomorrow, but that's supposed to be transferring hands either today or tomorrow, and they are really excited about getting things going and should be getting some plans into town ASAP with that. And on top of that, I got invited to a 10-year-old's birthday yesterday because they wanted to talk about town issues.
At a birthday party.
At a 10-year-old's birthday party. So there you go. I thought, wow, have things changed over the years. But as it turned out, they wanted to know about their school, which I couldn't help them with, and they really were excited about the park down here and wanted to know all about water parks. So that's why I got invited.
You thought
Cost me $50 for a present.
they normally would just ask for a clown, but you went.
Yeah, but exactly. Yeah, well, Ronald McDonald, right? But yeah, so I thought that was an interesting little birthday. They were quite
Cool.
quite enthusiastic about what was going on down there. So
Excellent.
yeah.
All right, Councillor Grant on the say.
Oh, thank you, yes. I think there's hope for the future. 10-year-olds are interested, don't you?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'll make mine very brief because I'm seconding most of the comments that others have made. I too attended the Water Forum, which I felt was very revealing. Also, of course, the big announcement to improve our Lazo Road foreshore. Raise awareness too of Honor House. That was most impressive. I won't repeat again. Also, McHappy Day, which was, again, I can't get over. I was so impressed with the efficiency of those young people. I was afraid to move my elbows. They were moving so fast. It was really well done and very, very busy. And two, Maureen has, Councillor Swift has very carefully outlined Shakeside, and where we're sitting with that. So something to look forward to.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kim.
Good stuff. I too attended the water workshop forum along with other councillors and our mayor. I attended on behalf of council the Transition Center, Women's Transition Center fundraising breakfast. Attended the Point Homes disaster mitigation announcement. Maple Lake committee meeting attended on behalf of council. National Music Monday. I went on behalf of council to the choral concert fundraiser for local Safe Haven refugee sponsorship group. Very well attended at Marquisco, Peninsula. Attended the Comox Valley Social Planning Committee meeting yesterday, and today the Homeless Coalition meeting. And lots of good things discussed.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Yes, and I know you, obviously your life is so full it lasts a long time, because it was last week we had the usual board meeting I was going, oh, you're going first.
Yeah.
26th of April. So just that, it was quite a short one, but we did, and people will have read in the paper now about the purchase of the land next to the exhibition ground, which is going to be an exciting addition and subject to planning. RD is looking to Comox as leaders in the field of carbon neutrality offset funds. I thought that was a neat comment. The CAO selection committee, of which the vice chair of the regional district is one of them. So it's made up of Director Chair Jolliffe, Councillor Grant, and Councillor Sproul, and Councillor Wells, directors, so you should call them. And we also made note of the changes to the conflict of interest regulations that have just come into place. So basically, if you are appointed by your council, you're okay, but if you're doing it off your own bat, then you're still in that murky area. A South Sewer referendum question approved, and nice cartoon. And that was it. And I also went to the Lazo Foreshore announcement, visited Anzac Days in Comox Mall, and went to a Comox Archives and Museum Society meeting. Lots of positive feedback on the 102nd, and people are continuously bringing in items with more on display, and getting good press coverage. Thank you. And staff are working on grant applications.
Great. All right, so I'll just report, attended the Island Health Water Forum. As mentioned earlier, the VIRAB Commercial Building Awards, Shoreline Restoration Project funding announcement, the Dragon Boat Open House. They had 6 Dragon Boat teams down here on the 23rd of April, just promoting their Dragon Boat activities, and lots of people were getting out. That was the day before Snow to Surf, so I actually got out to paddle for my one practice before the race in a canoe, and managed to survive that enough to go in the race the next day, and also participated in handing out of awards. The Honor House is referenced at the Fire Hall. And the last 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, I was up in Fort St. John for the Mayor's Caucus meeting. That's a group of mayors that have been getting together over the last number of years to talk about common issues, sort of modeled on the FCM Big City Mayor's Caucus, although this is all mayors. There was about 35 mayors there. We talked about a number of things. There's a couple resolutions coming forward around review of the community charter. There's a couple papers that were presented that I put on circulation, went around the duty to consult, and that's not in reference to First Nations, but rather from province to local government. So that was well presented. There was also some paper on building code changes. And then we had a presentation, I think some of you may have seen it or heard about it, the Reese Harding from Young Anderson has been making a presentation around the province to various associations on the idea of an integrity commissioner, which was a very interesting discussion, and I know that Powell River is actually hosting him here in the next few weeks if anyone wants to go over. The outcome of that will be determined, but essentially what the suggestion is that perhaps UBCM can again consider that at the upcoming convention. I think there is in fact a resolution on that. So look for that to come forward, and the idea is to try to refer some of these somewhat contentious issues that happen, thankfully, at other councils than ours, to somebody who can kind of give an objective view on it and pass judgment. Of course, they have had integrity commissioners back east. And somebody pointed out, well, they have one in Toronto, and that didn't really help. But there is a role to be played, and I suppose we'll see where that goes. So it's good to see that initiative at least coming from the bottom up rather than top down. We also had a tour organized by the City of Fort St. John and the Oil Gas Commission of various natural gas facilities up in the Fort St. John area, which culminated in the tour of the Site C construction site. So very interesting to see all of that. Very busy day from about 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And then a presentation that night by Stuart Muir, who's the Executive Director of ResourceWorks. And you'll probably see him at UBCM. He gave a very good presentation on resource development in BC and some of the challenges. So it was a very good trip. Thankfully avoided the forest wildfires up there, and of course thinking about people in Fort McMurray, many of whom live here when they're not working up there. And today at McHappy Day. And then one final piece of news, sad albeit, is that James Robinson's wife has finally succumbed to cancer. So I know we're all thinking of their family and expressing our condolences. There will be a celebration for her life at their house on Saturday afternoon for those who may wish to attend. And certainly offer our prayers for that family, which of course they are the owners and operators of the Compass Adventure sailing program, which is run down here for many, many years. So that's my report. Any questions from the media?
It's $50 this gift for a child.
I don't have kids.
Apparently it was more than it should have been.
I was going to ask how much a clown costs.
I'm going to invite him to my grandkids' party.
All right, no other questions, no public members here. So a motion to adjourn would be in order. In favor, meeting adjourned.